Hello, this is Alan Biggs welcoming you to the Ref Show. And this week's headlines: You Are the Ref demands action on diving. Managers, PFA, FA, listen up. Chelsea 2, Hull 0. Any number of talking points in this one. Let's clear up the least contentious. Tom Huddleston sent off, already booked, straight red. Absolutely no argument on that one.
Correct. And I think what it is that it's unlike Tom to put in that sort of challenge. And I just think that the players had lost their discipline because they'd lost their trust in Chris Foy to make the correct decisions that went on in through that game. Now, if you take the decisions, you can look at Chelsea's first goal. For me, it was a clear foul by Mikel on Hull City in the centre circle. They went on to score. You can't argue with Tom Huddleston. You look at Gary Cahill's challenge. I mean, that was worthy of a red card on its own. But
well, we've got those. But I think Keith had some sympathy with Chris Foy here about the diving thing. We'll talk about the potential red card challenge and the escape of Gary Cahill in a moment. But Willen and Costa of Chelsea were both booked for for diving, and I think you upheld
correctly
both of those correctly. The Cahill one, after perhaps he should have been sent off, Foy was quite panned for that.
Rightly so.
Steve Bruce very critical, but it's not just Foy to blame here, though, is it?
Well, I think first of all, it's a clear dive. You know, there are some times when you can say a player might create a dive to avoid injury. Let's get that one out of the way. This is a dive to gain a penalty kick. And I have to say that when I was in charge a few years ago, we had a growth of simulation in the game. And we suddenly said, right, well, the way to stop this is through the managers. So we had meetings with the managers. I stood up, showed a number of clips. And
Should this happen now? Is this what you're saying? Well,
I think that, you know, the Premier League is transmitted around the world. And the Premier League protects, quite rightly, its image. And this is about the damage that is being created to the image of the Premier League. Therefore, I'm surprised the Premier League have not acted. They may well have behind the scenes. They've done that in the past. But I think that, you know, at the end of the day, this lack of communication, public communication, if you like, from the general manager of the PGMOL is what is lacking, because he should be setting the pace of these things. He should be saying, look, it's not my referees to blame here. It's not the referees committing the offences. It's the players. So let us try to work off the field of play to prevent these sort of damaging acts.
You criticise Mike Riley there, but we'd hear nothing about this from Gordon Taylor at the PFA, Mark.
I think you're right. I think the PFA have an obligation to its members. But coming back to what Keith said, I mean, for me, that was the easiest one out of the three.
It was.
That was the easiest one out of the three. So yes, you can look at the referee. I mean, I go back to that's Chris Foy's first game refereeing Chelsea since he refereed him last season, March the 15th at Villa Park, where he sent off Willian for 2 yellows, sent off Ramirez correctly for a serious foul play challenge, and he sent Mourinho to the stands where I didn't think they managed it as they should have managed. So he had an indifferent performance there. Is that on his mind? Does he not want to? You know, he don't want to feel the wrath of Chelsea.
Whether
again.
it is or isn't, there's no action from the PFA or the LMA, the League Managers Association.
I think
surely there's got to be action from these parties.
For me, there's got to be a panel introduced on a Monday that sits on a Monday that looks, because it's not only in the Chelsea game. We saw it last week in the Man City game with Milner. We saw it again at Sunderland, West Ham with the penalty for Sunderland.
Swansea City won.
Yeah, and Swansea yesterday. But for me, get a panel of a recently retired referee, recently retired players, two players or a manager and a referee, and you sit on a Monday morning, you go through it, and for me, you look at it, said, yep, that's simulation, 2-match ban, and the stakeholders, the chairman of the clubs won't like that, and that's the only way. It's a disease in the game, and we've got to stamp it out.
But I said quite categorically to the managers a few years ago, I can guarantee you one thing, we're going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
Because the quality of these dives, the active simulation,
so good.
So good.
Finally, Lee Mason in charge of Arsenal 4, Newcastle 1. I know Mark was on ref cam for this particular game. A Welbeck goal disallowed. I think we've covered that because you said it shouldn't have been. TOT, borderline red card, but he stayed on. But most of all, I want to talk about a player staying on his feet here when he could have dived.
Yeah.
And he got rewarded because he scored.
That's right,
Terrific.
I mentioned that in my blog, didn't I? That he'd done well to stay on his feet. And let's commend the player for staying on, because he could have gone down. He could have quite easily gone down. And I think full marks to Cazorla for staying on his feet and finished a wonderful goal.
This is what we want to see.
Absolutely.
You know, and particularly see a player get rewarded for doing exactly that. We'll see what action is taken on diving, because quite clearly something has to be done about that. Keith Hackett, Mark Halsey, thanks very much indeed. Join us again next week for a particularly festive edition of the Ref Show. See you then. Bye.